going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. If you don't know who I am, that means you're new. I'm Mark. What's good with y'all? Go check out my other videos. Check them out. Check them out. So, first, this is kind of, let me just, say right now, this is kind of more of a rant video than anything else. However, it's just, I don't understand this necessarily. So, with, gun YouTubers, not all of us live in free states, not all of us live in states like Florida, Texas, whatnot, right? To where we have, as much freedom with our firearms as we should. If not, we're still restricted. But I more so mean there are gun tubers in states like California, places along those lines where the state is just very restrictive on firearms, very anti-Second Amendment. It really doesn't stand for the morals that these people who live here sometimes have. I don't understand gun tubers in states like that. I don't get what the purpose is. I understand it's created kind of like a niche crowd, you would say, because, oh yeah, like perfect example, California. Oh yeah, well, the California compliant guns, if there's an update on the list, I understand how it creates kind of like a little niche crowd, especially for the people in, within that state. However, I just don't see a point in staying in that state is what I'm kind of getting at. I don't see a point in being a gun tuber in a state where you're not going to be able to do all the things you want to do. Now, here's a perfect example. I can English. Magazine capacity. In states like California, magazine capacity is very much so limited. You're only allowed to have 10-round mags unless you had 30-round mags prior to the ban. There was a whole Freedom Week situation that happened, whatever. Not my place to go over it because I'm not a California resident, nor do I care about what's going on there, other than when they try pushing for our rights to be taken away. Otherwise, as I was saying, I don't get the point of staying in California if you're a gun tuber. I don't get the point, in being in a state where your rights are being limited. If you're a gun tuber, your Second Amendment rights being limited pretty much means it's limiting the content you can put out. It essentially limits your income as well. I mean, I just don't get it. I really don't. It doesn't make sense to me why you would want to even stay in a state that is holding beliefs that you don't have. You see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me in any way, shape, or form to sit here and have to say, yeah, you know what? They want to take everything I have. They want to take my rights. They want to take my guns. They want to take everything. I'll just chill here. I'll just sit here. I'll ride it out. I don't get that. Now, before I continue on, I understand this is going to be a bit shorter of a video. I might go in circles a little bit. This is more of a rant video. I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me when you can live in a state like Florida, Texas, Louisiana, New Hampshire. There are a ton of Second Amendment respecting states that you can live in and have more rights and, be able to put out much more content, all these things, and you just don't. You'd rather stick it out. I don't get the purpose of that. And that's another thing, too, that people, don't ever think about. There are certain states that they will always be how they are. California, I unfortunately believe, is going to be one of those. California will always be pushing against guns. California will always be pushing against the Second Amendment as a whole. And, some people might disagree. Some people might say, oh, no, we need to get these people out, put these people in. That'll change us all around. And, if that's the case, then I hope so, and I hope y'all do so. But until then, we're not seeing an end in sight here. We're not seeing, oh, yeah, well, they'll stop after they do this, because there is no stopping for them. So doing all this, sticking around, it just doesn't add up to me. As I said, I understand, the concept of, oh, yeah, well, we want to stick it out and see, things will change. Okay, whatever, I guess. I just don't really understand it, considering there is no end in sight. They're not going to sit there and, fold or bend on their shit, because they're going to keep trying to push to take your rights away. That's just what happens in California. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? I hate to break it to y'all, but if there's, one state in this country that it's 100% just trying to take your gun rights away, it is California. I don't understand these gun tubers who would stay there and claim that, oh, I'm going to stick it out. Things will be just fine. I don't understand how they could say that with a straight face, acting like they have actual hope for it. I don't see any form of hope for states like that that have already restricted rights to that extent. I see maybe them being able to loosen some of them, but I mean, unless we completely just fired everybody that was in those states' governments and hired people that had complete opposite views of them, I really don't see too much changing, especially in states like California, as I said before, where they will stay how they are. And if you know what I mean, I more so mean that they're pretty much going to be as liberal as it can get. That's just the truth of the matter here. So to be a gun tuber there, it just doesn't make sense. I understand being a gun tuber in a free state where you're like, yeah, I can do this shit. It's not a problem. And as I said, I understand that, being a gun tuber in a state like California creates a niche little crowd where it's like, oh yeah, this is what's allowed here. This is what's not. These guns are on this roster list. These are not. Whatever. I get that. But other than that, I mean, why would you want to stay there? And even then, you don't have to live there to be able to provide updates on that. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't add up at all. I don't see a single point to staying in essentially a communist state talking about freedom. You don't look like a freedom fighter to me. I mean, you just look like an idiot. If you have the money to leave the state and you're choosing not to, I mean, look, some people might have family in the state that they're in, they want to stay there. That's fine. I get that. Just realize though that you're choosing, your family over your rights, which is fine. Some people would do that, no problem. Certain members of my family I would do that for. But why not just talk to them about moving out of there too? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to want to stay in states that are like that. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of look at it as like, if you're at a job and they put in a new policy that is completely, irrational and unfair, and you're like, dude, I just can't deal with this shit no more. You find another job and then you go to your other job. You see what I mean? You find another job, you quit your first job, go to your second job, which will now be your first and only job. It's not hard to, figure out. I mean, y'all might be looking at me like, oh yeah, this is kind of a dumb rant. They might just want to stay in the state to see their family. They might want to stay in the state because they see themselves as people pushing for a change. I don't see any of it like that. I really don't. You know what I mean? I understand wanting to stay around for family maybe, but like you could also talk to your family and say, hey, look, I want to leave. Our rights are being taken from us here. We're getting screwed over in every way possible. Why don't you leave too? You can leave and come to the state we're coming. Well, whatever, figure something out. I don't see the point in staying in the state of California or any states along those lines if they're just going to keep restricting your rights. And that's just for the average citizen that I'm talking about. If we're talking about like a gun tuber, somebody who, they consistently make YouTube content about guns. They, basically their entire channel is based around the Second Amendment, firearms and guns. Why would you even want to stay there in the first place? Look, I don't know about y'all, but I actually enjoy making YouTube. That's one of the reasons why I do it. You know what I mean? I really enjoy making YouTube. I wouldn't be able to sit here and, talk about 90% of the things that I do talk about on here. And I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to do any of the things that I get to do if I didn't live in a free state. If I lived in a state like California, guess what? That 500 round dagger review probably wouldn't have been able to happen. Why? Because I would have had to load 50 mags up just to get that done. 50 fucking mags. Are you joking? You see what I mean? So I'm just saying, being in a free state like this allows you to be able to do more if you enjoy doing something like making YouTube around gun content. So it doesn't add up for me why gun tubers in particular, let alone, your standard normal people, but gun tubers in particular, it doesn't make sense to me why they would want to stay in a state like that. But that about wraps it up for this video. I'm not going to keep going around and around in circles. With that being said, y'all make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that bell. When you hit that bell, hit all and because you agree with me, while it might create a little niche crowd, of viewers, whatever, for a gun tuber to stay in a communist state, essentially, it's ass backwards. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And if it makes no sense to you, make sure to check out all my other videos. Y'all make sure to stay legal, stay safe, stay dangerous. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.